Welcome back to Political Potluck. I'm Allison.
I'm Julia.
I'm Claudia. And today we're going to be talking about what it means to be a liberal versus a conservative.
Breakfast edition-ish. It's like 1.
Yeah.
No, it's
not.
It's 11. Sorry. It's
Almost
10:30.
It's brunch edition.
The brunch edition. Alright. So, first things first, just because you're liberal, just because you're conservative, doesn't mean that you're Democrat or Republican. They're two different, like, very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about liberals and conservatives is they are different on many levels. Like, the way they believe and the morals that they fundamentally, like, base off their decisions of. Is that English? Sorry. But there's a lot of differences. There was actually this one professor, Jonathan Haidt, who made this TED Talk that y'all should go check out. And it talks about the psychological differences between being conservative and being liberal. So that's pretty cool. And also age plays a difference, or age plays a big role in kind of helping you figure out whether you're conservative or liberal, because currently the millennials are, I don't know, classified?
More liberal than conservative, like substantially more liberal, in comparison to, I believe, the baby boomers, who were more conservative than liberal at the time.
Mm-hmm. So, age plays a really important role too.
For sure. So let's dive in.
Right, okay, so we're just going to be going through some more popular modern topics that are controversial today, I suppose, and I will give my views. I'll be giving more conservative views, and Allison will be giving more liberal views, and then we'll just talk about some events that are happening right now.
So, what does it mean to be a conservative? I have a mic.
Oh, that's you.
Is this open? Okay.
I'm a mess.
It's okay.
Alright.
Okay, so typically conservatives prefer conservatives typically prefer more traditional views, so they're pretty adverse to change. So in terms of the Constitution, they really like to stick to things that are explicitly stated in the Constitution that the people who wrote it had in mind. They don't really prefer increased government involvement. They think that government should only be involved or take action in ways that they can push people to pursue independence and innovation and just let them be more free thinkers. So that's more of what a conservative is, and typically conservative policies generally emphasize the empowerment of the individual rather than the government.
On the other hand, liberals, which are often considered the left, they believe in the protection of everyone's equality and liberties, and they believe that that's the fundamental, like, basis of a society, and that's what we need to, like, pursue. They prefer governments. They don't say that they have to have big governments, but they do prefer having a government, like, be involved to take care of social issues, to take care of the economy. So they do believe that the government is really crucial in making sure that the society is equal and that everyone is being represented properly. Yeah. They're not as, I guess, fundamental in the way they're thinking. They believe the Constitution can be changed based on time, and they believe that depending on the situation, it can be applied in different ways. So yeah, that's what it is in general.
So, are we gonna get into different
topics?
Yeah.
First topic. It's a big one. We're just gonna dive in.
We're gonna go in for it.
So, abortion. So, a lot of people's views definitely come out when with the, like, idea of abortion and stuff, and I think it started to become more prominent when Roe v. Wade happened.
Mm-hmm. What is Roe v. Wade?
Yeah, what was Roe v. Wade?
Funny you should say that, Claudia. So Roe v. Wade is Jane Roe. She wanted to get an abortion. This was like in the 70s? Yep. 60s, late 60s, early 70s. And she was not able to, so they took her case all the way up to the Supreme Court. She ended up suing the Texas, or the Dallas,
District Attorney?
Yes, that's the word. District Attorney. And so her court went all the way up to the Supreme Court. There's a lot of interesting things about that, I can link some stuff below because it's a very interesting case. Yeah, there's a lot of controversial stuff surrounding it, but it kind of started an ongoing discussion about your right, I guess, over privacy or over your body, especially for women and stuff, and she ended up winning. So it made abortion legal.
But it's still a really controversial topic because liberals tend to believe that it is the woman's right. It is the right to her body, and the child, say a child is not technically a human, therefore they don't have a right to live, but the woman who is carrying the child is a person, and therefore it's her body, and so she has the right to decide. That's the liberal standpoint. So they're pro-abortion, or pro-choice, sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, pro-choice. Pro-choice versus pro-life is a really big debate going on nowadays. So pro-choice is definitely considered more liberal. Pro-life would be conservative, because conservatives really believe in this idea of conception where the woman should conceive the child, and that even an unborn baby has separate rights from its mother, so it deserves a chance to live and see a life. So the whole abortion thing, conservatives typically don't believe in abortion. They want like a law that like bans abortion, because it's essentially to them murdering a child and murdering a person.
Fun fact, just so it's clear, in Roe v. Wade, the people, because there's the dissenting and the majority, and the people who were in the dissenting, they didn't necessarily agree or disagree with abortion. I think this is where people get confused, and the majority didn't necessarily agree or disagree. They just were giving you the right to your own privacy and making that your choice, and the dissenting, I think's reason for saying no was that it wasn't really the government's place, I believe, to like say, and I think they wanted it to meet more state regulated.
Yeah, in terms of government action for that case specifically, it was more like they were sort of determining a woman can have this amount of time within a pregnancy where the government won't interfere in her decision to have an abortion, but once it hits like the third trimester, it's like really close to you having to give birth to the baby, then they will, if you haven't chosen to get an abortion, they will interfere and like maybe stop you from doing that, unless it's at the risk of the mother's health or life.
Because after the third trimester, the fetus is viable on its own, so like it could technically live outside the womb, so that's when people consider it to not be okay to get an abortion.
So, abortion. Next topic?
Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to mention with that. Is Planned Parenthood. I know right now our current administration is trying to stop the funding for, like, government funding for that. So that's like a big kind of controversial topic that's happening right now, because a lot of people who can't necessarily afford seeing a doctor about like certain like issues and stuff revolving around pregnancy, they go to Planned Parenthood, and if the government stops funding that, then they might not necessarily get care. So
that's a very liberal standpoint. Like, they believe that most liberals believe that abortion should be available to all, and so therefore the government should be allowing or making the means so that everyone who wants an abortion can actually afford it regardless of their economic status.
Right, and conservatives really don't like the idea of like taxpayer funds going into aspects of social, like our society, like abortion. They'd much prefer it go into different things that they do care about.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. Affirmative action.
Wait, before we start, can I get a napkin?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So, someone want to tell us what affirmative action is? 'Cause I think that's important.
Okay, I wasn't sure like how far. Okay. So affirmative action is essentially taking action to, I guess, create more equal opportunities and results, and for the people who, like minorities who have been discriminated against, whether it's like on race, sex, and stuff. So right now, actually no, college might be like something you talk about. But yeah, so it's essentially just
Playing.
I don't know if I should have talked about that. Cool.
That's fine. Just talk.
Yeah, so it's just making more opportunities for people who have been discriminated against, like racial minorities, like African Americans or like females in some aspects. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how affirmative action translates into college and stuff,
Yeah.
Julia?
So today, not like today, but today.
Today.
But right now there's a case going on. Are you talking about the Harvard one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. It's Harvard. No, wait. It's the group. Do you know what the group is called?
I don't. Oh.
Pretty much, okay. Asian Americans believe that they're essentially being discriminated against by Harvard because the standards to get in to the school are higher than, say, someone who's white. So, like, SAT scores, if you're Asian, need to be higher. Your GPA, you need to be, like, more involved, which, I guess is a form of discrimination because it's making it more difficult for a minority group to attend a school like Harvard. And there have been cases like this in the past with other schools and other races, so that'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Right, so the argument that the Asian American girls are talking about is more of like a conservative thing because they typically believe that ability should be the biggest factor determining who should go into a prestigious college like Harvard, rather than setting up quotas and like wanting specific numbers for each race. So conservatives believe that there should not be affirmative action and that they should just discontinue that because they want people who are getting higher education to have deserved it or are more promising to fulfill that in their research.
Liberals, on the other hand, think that affirmative action is a necessary step in order to make sure that all races, all genders, everyone is being represented equally. And so they believe the government has to take a step in that and like actually be there to help protect the rights of minorities. So in this case, what liberals may say is that it's a good thing that the Harvard does have these set quotas because that makes sure that every group is represented, and so it does mean that it's slightly more competitive within these groups in order to be represented in them.
Yeah, because they want it to be like an equal balance on campus, I guess you could say. So I feel like there's a lot of stigmas around being Asian American and I guess like educational abilities, and so because of that it's created this idea of making it more difficult for Asian Americans to go to Harvard. Yeah.
Next.
topic. Embryonic stem cell research. I don't know a lot about this.
Okay, this is just like completely random, but liberals actually believe that embryonic stem cell research is it's a moral thing. It's an ethical thing that we need to do in order to like make sure that we're producing more medicines, producing new cures and whatnot. So they do support it, and in general they believe that it's a positive thing that will provide good impacts for the human species. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, what's the conservative?
Right. So, opposed to the liberal view, conservatives think that it's unethical, immoral, because extracting stem cells like from the embryo is also, it's like going back to the idea of conception. It's taking away the life of another being, of another human. So they do support like extracting cells from like the umbilical cords and like stuff from like the mother that is not directly connected to the child, just because it's living, like and there's not enough research to support that embryonic stem cell research will go far, rather than from the umbilical cord, which has been used to treat diseases like Parkinson's and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. The death penalty.
It's a big one.
So, you wanna? I'll go. Okay. Sure. So, I guess. Sorry. So, most liberals believe that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment, and that there's always a risk of executing someone who's actually innocent, and therefore they believe that even if someone did murder another person, the proper punishment would be imprisonment, not death itself. Just because, you know, you could be imprisoning and you could be executing someone who actually is innocent and they've been framed. So they believe that the death penalty is a no-no.
And the conservative view is pretty simple. It's not an unusual punishment. That's what they think, or conservatives think, and that to take one's life, there is a price to pay, and that would be your life. And even currently now, there's like thousands of people on death row. So many people awaiting when they might have their sentence.
And there's also been a lot of people on death row who've been proven innocent, which is very sad. So yeah, and I think this is where you start to see a lot of conservative Democrats or liberal Republicans, because I think this viewpoint can vary from person to person rather than between parties or between
Political views.
Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, I think it's very. Yeah,
it's very like person to person.
Yeah,
it's
life or death.
It's like it's about your own personal morals. So it might not necessarily, like, even if you are a more conservative thinker, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree with the death penalty. Yeah.
Hey. On a more positive note, let's talk about euthanasia.
I don't know if that's positive.
It's ironic.
Oh, sorry, I did not detect that.
Euthanasia or assisted suicide.
Yes. So quite, I don't know, ironically, I guess, liberals, although they oppose the death penalty, they support euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide because they believe it is the right of the person to decide whether or not they do really want to continue, I guess, living, especially for those who are suffering a really life-threatening illness or something that they know they cannot come out of, such as ALS. They believe that it should be the patient's decision to decide whether or not they want to continue living and whether or not they want to go through all the treatment and pain. So liberals in general believe that euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide should be implemented and should be given as a choice.
Yeah, for conservatives, it's definitely not about assisting someone in ending their own life. They really stress the importance of like how immoral it is and how wrong it is, just because you're determining sort of when someone's life will end in assisted suicide. And also when you're ending your own life instead of just passing peacefully. So they believe that the better route to this sort of situation is to continue treating them even when they're suffering and just like seeing it out to the end.
I think it's very ironic, where people stand on this versus the death penalty, because like you said, they don't believe it's the person's choice of when they should die, or like it should be up to someone else to when they can die. But for the death penalty, it is, and like same with like liberal views. Like it's very
different.
It's super,
even when it also concerns life and death.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, again, I feel like especially when it revolves around death, the views vary from person to person. So yeah.
Oh no. Oh well. Okay.
Hopefully you're eating fruit. I'm not eating coffee. I'll grab fruits. Okay. The economy. On a lighter note.
On a lighter note, the economy.
Okay. So conservatives usually believe that competitive capitalism, free market, will equal more opportunities and a higher standard of living. So they don't usually want the government to have such a big control over the economy, just because it limits people from, I guess, pursuing, or not pursuing, but like being more independent and working harder and saving more money and really taking on those personal skills, because again, they believe that the government should be doing enough to push people to, I guess, stand up for themselves more.
On the other hand, most liberals believe that it is actually part of the government's role to help with economic I guess, well-being status of the country. They believe that we should have different programs that help support those in poverty, that help support like encouraging business and whatnot, but they believe that the government should have a big role in controlling how the economy works to make sure it's stable. So yeah.
Okay. Education system.
This one was a little weird for me when I read the segment because it's like it's more about vouchers, and I don't know what a voucher really is at my school. Or like our school.
I think, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but a voucher would be like, say someone can't afford to go to a charter school or public school or private school, then they would get a voucher from the government in order to allow them to go to that school without paying as much or whatnot.
The more you know.
But liberals, they believe that private schools and charter schools are great and all, but public education is the most important and therefore the most...
Like there should be more funding towards that.
They believe that public schools are the best education system. They believe that that's the best way to educate our youth. And so they want to put as much support into public schools as possible rather than private or charter schools.
Okay. Yeah. Global warming. So, before we get into this, currently, our current administration has opinions on this. And because of said opinions, all research for global warming or climate change has been essentially wiped clean. Because, yeah, I don't know. I was doing a project on this last year, and I could not find any information on it because it's all gone. So I only could use screenshots from when they were on the internet.
So weird,
yeah. So, you want to get into why?
Yeah, so in a conservative standpoint, global warming is sort of inevitable. Like, it's just the natural change in temperature of our world. So they feel that, like, putting such an emphasis on global warming is sort of pointless, I guess. And I think it was, like, something... Sorry, give me a second. What is it? Oh, yeah. So people who have been proposing laws to reduce carbon emissions, it really like just doesn't help the environment at all, I guess, in their perspective, and it just causes increased prices for everybody.
Liberals, on the other hand, most of them believe that global warming is a cause of human activity. So carbon emissions through the meat industry, through industry itself, like what's it called, machines or factories or cars especially, they believe it all has to do with what we as the human species, human beings, have done to the environment. And because we're emitting all of these horrible toxic chemicals and toxic substances into the environment, that's what's causing climate change, that's what's causing global warming, and it's a major problem that we need to take care of because the world is changing at such a rapid rate that isn't just natural. But conservatives don't believe that there's enough scientific research or data to support it.
Right.
So
like the impacts that following the liberal view would have is sort of like just affecting us all, even when it like doesn't, I guess, in their standpoint. Yeah.
Okay.
we're almost done.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a big one. Gun control. So just some fun facts before we start, because I was telling Claudia before this, is the United States is one of 3 countries in the whole world that gives the constitutional right to bear arms. So, yes, and this is brought up as there have been, I believe as of today, 307 shootings in this past year. And so...
Like 2018?
Yes, 2018.
It's November.
Yeah, so it's practically almost one a day. So, yeah, you want to get into gun control?
Okay, well, based on those statistics, most liberals view or believe that guns should be controlled, that there should be laws, and that the Second Amendment right is kind of outdated because they needed it during the time that it was made. When the Constitution was first created, when the Bill of Rights was first added, that was a right that they were worried about. That was something that they really believed was important. But now in 2018, it's not something that's really applicable. And so liberals, most of them believe that guns should be controlled, that that a gun is not a liberty, it's not a right, it's something that you are given as a, I don't know.
It's like not a necessity.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
It's not therefore needed and shouldn't be guaranteed to everyone.
Mhm.
There should be rules and there should be regulations.
Right.
And in a conservative viewpoint, they don't think the Second Amendment is outdated. They sort of follow it to a T, saying that people should have the right to own, bear arms and own guns to protect themselves. And they think that like the statistics of how many shootings have occurred is more so because of people irresponsibly using them. So they do believe in like giving out guns when there are proper checks. And yeah, so a lot of statistics in the conservative argument would be that compared to countries that don't really have gun control, like, yeah, who don't have gun control, but they have less violence, I guess, or less number of casualties, it's more so because they just do own guns. So they actually believe that more people should be armed, and then there would be less shootings.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so this kind of leads into the next one, because when a shooting normally happens, you can also look at the mental state of the person and how much accessibility they had, I guess, to healthcare. So healthcare. You want to go for it, Allison?
Yeah, okay. So a lot of liberals believe that healthcare should be universal and that everyone should be given healthcare. The same healthcare, like everyone should have equal opportunity to it, and that it shouldn't be based on how much money you have or whether you can afford it or not. Everyone should be given the same treatment, should be given the same, I guess, access to all different medical equipment and medical treatments. And so they really support government-funded healthcare because that allows everyone to be able to go and make sure they're healthy.
Mm-hmm. And conservative. So conservatives don't believe in like that kind of healthcare, mainly because they think that like free programs involving healthcare, if everyone is under free programs, I guess, or just like the same program, that they are getting the best like help and resources. They think that healthcare should remain privatized, and that uninsured individuals who can't afford it per se should seek the free healthcare. Like, I don't know, like, what was it? It's like, should we address this on the free? Yeah, the free market healthcare system. So it's really like, if you can afford it, good for you. But if you can't, like, you should be finding different alternatives to make sure that you can. Guess.
Yeah, and I think this particular issue definitely lines up more with Democrat and Republican views, ideas, because healthcare, especially, I think, is a big push made by Democrats, and Republicans oppose that a lot, and so this is definitely where it most, I would say, lines up with one another. Do you want to check it before we go?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. We're filming at 4%. So
Okay.
let's wrap this up. Let's go.
Rapid
Alright,
fire.
a few more things.
Rapid fire.
Let's be really quick about
3
it.
more.
Okay. Ready? And okay.
Go.
Next topic: LGBTQ plus rights. Also, like specifically, like same-sex marriage.
So this is in the news a lot. This has lately been in the news a lot. Liberals in general believe that it should be a person's decision. They believe that you have the right to decide who you love. You have the right to decide who you want to marry, and the government should not pretty much be able to define whether or not it has to be male and female. And they believe that regardless of who you are, regardless of how you identify, you have the same rights as everyone else. And so there should be no distinction drawn on the lines of what you were when you were born. So they really do support equality. They do really support equal rights. And
yeah, conservatives just think that marriage is a union between a man and a woman, and therefore same-sex marriage is sort of like it doesn't make sense, I guess, in their terms. So yeah.
Yeah, and so the most recent thing that's been going on is transgender rights and their military rights, I guess, because currently, if you are transgender, you cannot enlist in the military. So that's a big thing, I guess, that's been going on right now.
but that also goes into, like, moving on to the next thing, religion. Liberals believe that there needs to be a distinct separation between the state and between religion, meaning that any legislation, anything that is created by the government should not be based off of a certain religion's ideas or views. And so most liberals don't support the idea, because the idea of, like, same-sex marriage and the idea of having a male and female marriage is very, I guess, it's a conservative idea that's based on religious background or religious beliefs, and liberals don't believe that that should be how it's done. They believe it should be separated between the government and religion. So that's your religion, go ahead, but the government should not be supportive of one religion.
Right, and about, like, religion, so conservatives will think that the separation of church and state is, like, not in the Constitution. So again, sticking to what they explicitly say, that's not in the Constitution. The First Amendment does, like, prevent the government from establishing laws that sort of make one religion more, like, so dominant than the others, but it shouldn't have to affect, like, schools or, like, other government institutions from being able to acknowledge the religion. So keeping symbols from different religious heritages is sort of what they hope to protect and support, instead of eliminating that in general from any, like, place.
Nice. Okay. Quickly, hopefully it didn't die. Last one is taxes.
Taxes. So, liberals are like, we need more taxes for the rich. That way we can help support the poor, and that way we can be equal. They really believe in having liberties and equality for all. So if that means taxing the rich with a little bit more in order to make sure that those who are not as well off do have the same, I guess, access to all the resources, then they believe that taxes are a good thing.
And conservatives believe that lower taxes are better because it means limited government. It means that people who are, I guess, paying for things, that they earned it, and it creates a better standard of living.
Yeah, okay. Hopefully that we're still going. Okay, that's all. Like and subscribe.
We didn't even eat all of
it. I literally got so full so much food.
Okay, but it's breakfast. Like, I don't
have
have a big
my stomach is not ready for this. But yeah, okay, so check us out. We have one episode left. That'll be fun. And yeah, okay.
Yeah!
Cool. Bye.
Bye.
Nice!
Yay!
Ooh, it just turned.
I'm coming back to you, I'm coming back to you, back